All right, we've been working hard and we've been working on some very serious stuff. So now we're going to take a break from all that and we're going to work on some whimsical things. Now, I know whenever you look at everything that we've created so far and you say, well, Philip, how can that become whimsical? Well, pretty easily. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look and see what could become a fun, cartoonish type of thing. I think this pin cup has some possibilities. And I think this cactus, or maybe even this plant, we'll go ahead and bring both of those for right now. We may end up doing both. It really doesn't matter. And let's look around. I think you could do the printer, but we're already being silly. Let's go with the coffee cup. And this is top down, so we'll probably end up adjusting him to maybe front facing or something like that. That's not that big of a deal. And we're going to take this cell phone. All right, so how are we going to add whimsy to all of these things? Well, it's simple. We're going to take the shapes that are afforded to us and we're going to just slowly piece them together until we make something that has a little bit of a cartoonish feel. So let's start with the pin cup. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on it big and then we'll shrink it back down small. And some of the elements of this we will have to change. Like for instance, the cactus here, way too much detail. If we're going to make it cartoony, you need to drop the detail. And we'll get into that here in a second. So the first thing we need is this color is not going to work. So we are going to go with, I can't do yellow because that'll mash with all that. Let's go with, let's try purple. We're going to do purple and we'll keep the little black bit for right now. And we are going to find our little eyebrow shape and we're going to rotate them. And it really doesn't matter where you rotate them as long as both of the shapes you're about to make kind of have the same lie. Okay. And we can leave it that color for right now. We can come back and change it here in a minute. And throw it back. And look what we got. Our little guy's got legs. So now we take the same pieces. And you can do the arms in a similar way. You know, if you wanted to just take this, flip it all the way around, make it way big and kind of do something like that. You know, it may or may not work depending on what you're using. You can definitely do that. I am not going to be doing that on this illustration. I think it's easier just to separate it, kind of look at it and say, how do I feel about that? And what I would highly recommend you look at doing is maybe get like a guide block or something like that if you want to be perfect, or do what I'm going to do and don't make it perfect. And by not making it perfect, you're not held to the same bounds as making it perfect. So we're kind of using imperfection to our advantage. And now it kind of looks like almost like the pin cup's doing a little bit of a dance. So what are we going to do next? My legs down here are perfect. So I think I'll kick them up a little bit. And now we really look like we're dancing. And we need to give them a face. So we're going to take one of these eyebrow shapes. We're going to flip it around. And we're just going to set him off to the side right now. We're going to need him here in a second. Eyeballs are tough. And the reason why eyeballs are tough for a lot of people is they go in and they just drop one, then they try and line the second one up, and it's a nightmare. What I've found is the easiest thing to do is to make an eyeball in the center of your object, or wherever, center as in vertical center, not a horizontal center, and copy, come out to the side, copy, come out to the side, and delete. Bam, you have eyeballs, and they're perfectly spaced. Is this solution going to work every time? No, of course not. But is it a good starting point for you to kind of play with things? Completely. Other tricks you can do, you can take and make a guide square. And we're going to need to change the color on this. Anyways, you can take that guide square and you can set them up in the dead center, which is going to be hard to find because I got a lot of things going on here. If it'll let me find the dead center. Anyways, let's just pretend that I found the dead center, and you just kind of stretch them out until, there we go. So you're happy with it, right? Then what you would do is you would take your, and they're not going to let me do it, so I'm going to have to move this. You would take your eyeballs. Let's see if we can, yep, there we go. And you would bisect them on the extents of our square. And then we take it away and we have our eyeballs. So however you choose to do it, using the 3-circle method, one in the center, circle on each side, get rid of the one in the center, or if you take a square, center of the square, make semicircles on the outside of the square with the eyeballs. However you want to line it up, either which way works perfectly fine. And a lot of it just kind of depends on, what's the base shape that you're working with. And in this instance, the base shape that we're working with is this rounded rectangle. And we're going to leave this square right here for right now because we're going to need him a little bit later on. Match that purple. All right, now we need to bring in our eyebrows. And we can tell off the bat our eyebrows are way too big. So we're going to shrink them up. And that looks good. That looks kind of cartoony. I might make it a little bit bigger and have them kind of wrap a little bit. And make a copy. And line everything up. And this you can kind of eyeball. Yet again, if you want to do something like having one up and one down, you can do that too. For right now, we'll just kind of keep it neutral. And then we need to make another circle. Bring them down. And that's a little big. But you can already start to see our little cartoon face, developing. And right now he looks like he's yelling. We're going to make him smile. So I'm going to come down. I think right here feels good to me. Then I'm going to take this square that I have, bring him all the way to the front, bring him down, and bring him up. And there we go. Now we have our happy dancing pen cup. Problems that we're looking at right now. The gray on the purple does not work. Shape-wise, all this is perfectly fine. Color-wise, absolutely horrible. So what we're going to need to do now is we are going to need to find colors that correspond correctly with each other. Now we have a lot of yellows, blues, and reds, so we need to stay away from yellows, blues, and reds. We got a couple greens that we made earlier. I like that lime green, which is one of the default colors, so if you want to make this exact shape, since you've already made the pen cup, that should be really easy to get those colors and build that. The little black stuff, which is the base of the pen cup, that's kind of ended up working out almost like pants. So here we can have a little bit more fun, if we want to do like a blue or a purple, or if we just wanted to do a darker green. It really doesn't matter which direction we want to go there, or if you like a black, leave it black. His little arms, what you can do on those is you can either A, have his limbs be a different color, or B, you can just come in with a darker green. And the darker green, it really doesn't matter which darker green you use. I would just make a generically darker green. I'm going to drop this leg. Oh, no, I'm not. There we go. Give him more of a dancing vibe. Kind of like, almost like he won a boxing match or something. All right, very cool. So he's got some little pants. He's dancing. Let's tweak some of the other bits here. His mouth needs to be black because whenever you open your mouth, it's dark. You can do teeth and a tongue if you want. I will caution you on that heavily. Teeth take a lot of time whenever you're doing little designs like this, and you've already put so much effort into doing the pencils and everything else that we've done so far. If you wanted to take it all the way, I'll show you how to do it real quick. I just don't recommend it at all. Make teeth. That's step one, and teeth are really simple. Get a square, get a round square, whatever you want to use as your teeth. Make them white. And then you start putting them in, just like that. The hardest part about teeth, and the reason why I'm going to skip it, is you got to come all the way in here, and you need to think about how many teeth you need all the way across, right? And then you have to put spacing on all of those teeth, and you have to make all of those teeth even. So to give you an example, let's give this guy teeth. We're gonna need to make this a little smaller. And we're gonna zoom in way, way, way more. So we're gonna make our guide square, just like what we've done in every other part of this course. You know, remember, most of what we're doing isn't anything complicated. It's just using the tools and the shapes available to us to make bigger and better things. We're going to take this tooth to the far extent, and what we're trying to do is just barely beyond that edge. But, you know, remember, in design, thick lines win, thin lines fail. So don't hug up on that all the way. Then we put our guide square, and we copy a tooth. And we're just going to see if we get lucky, because I'm not trying to do this perfectly. And what I mean by lucky is as we come and we connect this all together, you're going to see the problem. We are not going to be perfect over here on this side. You see what I'm talking about? So there's a couple things you can do here. The easiest thing to do would be to take all these guys and, you know, build them all separately and line them all up. And, you know, that's, oh, wrong way. That's definitely something you can do. You know, if you were just really, really, really wanted this guy to have teeth. The other thing you can do is just kind of feel it out. You know, because the thing you're trying to avoid is you don't want to be sitting here changing the size of these teeth 17 million different times. You can just kind of feel out the distance, and it'll look a little sloppy, but you can just space it as needed. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this either, because if you're anything like me, you'll be here in hell trying to line all this up and trying to make it all look perfectly, because if you spent the time making teeth, you're going to want it to look right. Right, so you kind of get where we're going here, how much time this is going to take just sitting here fiddling, or you'd need to rip everything apart and build this from scratch. And that's why we're not going to go with teeth. But if you do want to take the time to do it, like I said a second ago, there's a couple different ways to do it. What I would do if it was me, if you want to invest that, is I would come off to the side, make a copy of my mouth, and I would build it all out and get it perfect over here. Then I would delete the circle that is my mouth, make that into a group, and then bring it over here and put it in. But the other thing to keep in mind as well, are teeth going to make this look more cartoony, or is it going to be a lot of work just to take away from how the total composition of the object feels? And yet again, that's more of a personal preference thing. And, you know, as you've heard me say many times in the course, you're going to be spending a lot of effort on a very, very, very small piece that's not going to make as much of a difference. You know, I would tell you that, you know, his arms and however we're going to orientate him, you know, that's going to make more difference for giving the feel of the little character. So let's make some eyeballs. You can make the eyeballs whatever color you want. I'm probably going to go blue. And then the little eyebrows, you know, you can do the same thing. Black or white is what I tend to gravitate to. And that all just kind of depends on the colors I'm working with. You know, if it makes them look happier or funner, if they're white, I do white. If it makes more sense for them to do black, I do black. Or some other color, you know, whatever you want to do there. Talking about the tongue is just so difficult to get right. Because what you have to do is you have to come in here, you have to find a shape, put it down there, and, you know, it's going to be, can I give you an example? It's going to be down here, right? And you're going to have to find a way to build out shapes not to have the other part of this circle shown. If you were an illustrator, you know, you could use your shape builder tool and go in, and this would just be really super duper easy. What I've found, if you just have to have some type of thing, and I might need to straighten back out to do this. There we go. If you just have to have some type of thing in there that represents the tongue, it's easier to use the masking square that you already got. And then go back with it. And you got something that's kind of tongue-esque. And you can make it a little bigger. It's almost kind of like he's sticking his tongue out a little bit. If you want to, you can just own it and have him completely stick out his tongue. And if you just had to have something, that looks cleaner and better and really kind of fits the composition too, because it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be funny. You know, he's sticking out his tongue. Haha. I wouldn't really do much more than that, because at some point you're just going to go into intricacies that don't gain you anything. But I actually kind of like what we did there. That's fun. So let's go back. Let's do these eyeballs. If you want to, you can add pupils. If you are going to add pupils, you know, just make sure and line up your pupils on both sides. You know, the easiest thing to do here would be to center the pupil. And yet again, we got a lot going on here, so it's going to start to kind of get difficult. And that's not perfect, but we're in the ballpark. And it looks kind of cool, and it gives them a little bit of personality. Other things you could do too is you could take it all the way down. You can make it white, and you could do like an eye shine. And yet again, you're just going to want to make sure that you're definitely getting this even Stevens on both sides. And it's going to get really tough. And you got kind of like a fun little look there. Let's go back. Let's do our eyebrows. And I actually think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the eyebrows in the dark green and match the limbs. And there's our fun little pen cup guy. Now, you know, you saw me kind of playing through with this and feeling it out as we went. You need to allow yourself to experiment. It's important to know where you're trying to get to, but let yourself enjoy the process. Let yourself feel out all the different ways that a character or an illustration can develop. If you don't do that, you're never really going to expand or embrace your creativity to its fullest extent. Prime example, this little guy. He's a lot of fun. He looks really cool. I think he's better than what I originally planned because of the little things that we were, you know, kind of doing together. So I like him. I think he looks really good. One of the things that is going to be a bit of annoyance for you is you are going to have to ungroup all this and then regroup all this, and that kind of stinks. We're just going to set him off to the side for right now, our fun dancing pen cup guy, and yeah. So next we can do our cell phone, and the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to center him, and we need to make him big. Now, cell phone's a modern piece of equipment, so you are going to run into a couple hiccups doing this, because the goal is to never make it look silly, right? The problem is some shapes, I probably shouldn't say never make it look silly. That's the wrong way to say it. Never make it look bad silly. You know, like our little pen cup guy is good silly. You know, he looks like we meant to have a dancing pen cup cartoon character. You know, whereas if you did, I'll just steal some shapes here real quick to make this easy. That's about right. Let me get rid of all this. Bear with me just a second here. We'll get all this stuff off, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, get rid of that, and we'll save some of this. So we're gonna take our phone, we're gonna get it kind of sort of where you could believe that the arms and the legs are right, and we're gonna bring him forward one piece at a time. Move that arm over, move this arm over. We'll make this some shade of gray. It's not gonna blend perfectly. That's pretty good. So this doesn't look good. This looks really bad. Why does it look really bad? You know, do we not have the same shapes? Do we not have the same things that look good on the pen cup? Or we're not using some of the same setups and everything else? Yeah, of course we are. But it doesn't fit the original object, which is the cell phone. You know, it's not that because it's technology it's different, or because one was a pen cup, one was a cell phone. No, it's all about how the shapes lie. You know, here we have this big fat rectangle, here we have this tall skinny rectangle. So we're going to need to work with that to create something that looks like a fully thought out object composition, whatever you want to call it. So for right now, I'm going to move these guys off. I'm going to save parts of this for us to reuse. That way I'm not having to sit here and remake all this every time we want to do anything. You can just live over there. Okay, so let's talk about our cell phone. One of the first things you saw that was a point of annoyance was having multiple different shades on the screen. I think it looks really cool. I think it definitely adds to the vibe of the cell phone, but in this particular instance, it's just going to be so difficult to mask everything and make it look good. And just a reminder, whenever we take a shape of a similar color and we have layers in between the bottom shape of color A and the top shape, you know, of color A, and everything in between is a different shape and different color, that's called masking, because we're using colors to cover up other things to create shapes. So let's just start off with some simple things. Let's do an arm, and we're going to go black for right now with the arms. And we want to ask ourselves, what do we want our cell phone to be doing? You know, we already have one entity that's dancing. Do we want another one that's dancing? You know, what do we want? And just with changing the orientation of the legs, do you see how different this character feels? Do you see how much better that makes sense for this character? You know, because if we had him down here, does that feel as right? Maybe, maybe not, you know, depending on what you're going for. But to me, no, not so much. This just looks funny. And in general, you know, yet again, it's a cartoon. It's going to look funny. But this just feels more whimsical in the right way to me. Kind of having the legs come out the side. Almost like, you know, he sprouted legs like a little insect or something. Let's go ahead, and I think we're going to keep the mouth, but we're going to lose the tongue. And that's something to talk about real quickly. You know, it's really tempting just to copy big portions of this and give all your characters the same face, all your characters the same eyes, all your characters the tongue sticking out, or teeth, or arms in the same direction, or whatever. But that's going to steal from your final composition. You know, you need to make all of your objects look different. If you don't, it's just not going to look as good. And we could keep the eyes and recenter them and everything else, but kind of like what I was saying a second ago, it's just going to end up looking not bad, just not as good as it could. So this time around, we are going to do the ball in the center trick, assuming I can get all my stuff to allow me to line up. Got so many things going on in here. There we go. Oh, I had it. Beautiful. Copy. And copy again. And for those of you guys who are wondering how I'm copying without stopping and clicking copy, I'm just using some hotkeys, which are Control-C and Control-V. For you guys who are using a Mac, I think it's Option or Command V and C. I apologize, I use a PC, so some of those I'm not up to speed on. And what we're looking for here is we want the circles to be touching, but not uneven. Beautiful. Then we delete, and there we go. We technically have a functioning little cartoony guy. I want the mouth to be bigger, because I think that's just going to work out well with this character, which means we need to make our mask bigger. And another thing I don't like how far down the mouth is. So I'm going to move the mouth up. Means I got to change the mask. And I like where we're going there. This character I'm not going to give eyebrows because we gave the last character eyebrows. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a big pupil. almost had it. There we go. So tough once you start getting a lot of things on the page. Perfect. And there we have our little character. We're going to tweak him a little bit more, but in general, he makes more sense to me than just copying everything. I can already see a couple things I don't like. I think I did the pupils way too big. So we're going to get rid of those and redo them real fast. I need to zoom in a little bit. That's kind of another one of those thin lines don't make friends type of deal. All right, there we go. Now let's decide, what do we want our little guy to be doing? Do we want to be doing a jumping jack? Do we want his, do we want his hands up in the air like he's excited, like yay? Do we want him, doing something different, like where he's doing kind of like a, a twist or something like that? Do we want his legs to be similar? Do we want his legs to be different? And this kind of looks fun. It's almost kind of like he's waving. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to make the legs the same. So let's see what angle we're at. We're at 60. We're just going to keep that going on both sides. Bring this around to negative 60. And I'm going to try and see if I can do this by eyeball, but if I can't, I'll get out a guide square, and I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Yet again, always use the tools at your disposal. And you can see I'm pretty far off. So we'll just come up a little. And I'm feeling like we're looking pretty good there. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to center this, and I'm going to see, yeah, we're a little out here. I think I'll just eyeball that. All right. And right, get rid of that guy. And there we go. There's a little cell phone. Now, could you do more with this guy? Of course. The reason why I'm choosing not to is I just think everything kind of works well that way. There's a lot of grays and whatnot on his little face. So I kind of dig sticking with that pattern, because it kind of gives it that, almost kind of techie feel. Now, you have a bigger mouth here. So if you wanted to have the teeth conversation, you could. If for some reason you wanted to do a square mouth, let me show you what that would look like. Something kind of like that. Teeth would fit really well in that, but what you're going to end up having is this kind of robot looking thing. And if that's what you're going for, that can look really cool and can look really good. If that's not what you're going for and you don't own it, it's going to look really silly and just bad. All right. And see, you kind of got like the little robot feel to it. And you could do this on both parts if you wanted. I'm going to need to zoom in here to clean that up. That's pretty clean. We'll take that up a little bit. And there we go. And technically your little robot has teeth. If you were going to go down this road, you would need to darken this up pretty significantly, which means we got to darken up everything. And there we have our little robot mouth with our little robot teeth. I don't personally like this as much. If you like this, it's your illustration, it's your, it's your art. You can make it whatever you want. Other things you can look at doing too, kind of going back to the teeth conversation. If you want to make really thin lines, we're going to need to zoom way in for this. And come through here and space all these little lines out perfectly and build teeth that way. And I'm not going to do this correctly. I'm just showing you what it would look like. Could you do that? Of course. You know, would that make this little robot looking mouth look better? Most likely. Not really my cup of tea. Yet again, you're doing a ton of work to do something, in my personal opinion, just looks okay. Where we could just stick to something silly. And have our little smiling robot guy. Now, other things you can do with the screen, you know, if you don't like the color of the gray and you want to go with like a pale blue or, you know, something along those lines to add some whimsy that way, I think that could be a fun way to add some color to this relatively drab looking cell phone guy. You know, if you wanted to take it all the way out and do something like building out like an actual little website, you know, you could do that, but you're kind of back in that teeth conversation. And then, you know, on top of that, you have to make all this stuff make sense with what's in there. So if I do like a headband of white or something, you know, what does that make sense? You know, no, not really. You know, if you were going to do something like that, you'd almost have to actually give them a headband, and you'd have to do that really, really well to make it look like your cell phone's working out or whatever you're trying to go for there. So anyways, we're going to go back to the gray for right now. And yet again, you know, we reserve the right to change this as much as we want. Group and shrink them on up. And we're going to go ahead and shrink up these guys a little bit more. And we'll tweak them more later, you know, as we go, as we get to the point where we're at our final composition. So things we have next. We have a cactus and we have a tree. Let's start off with the tree because I think the tree is going to be easier. And some of this you're just going to pick out instantaneously. So we're going to ungroup, and all of our work that we did earlier with the leaves, that goes bye-bye. Because whenever we need space to actually do the face and, you know, do everything and put it all together. And if we don't have said space because we're trying to include leaves, it's just not going to work. All right, and I'm going to cheat again because we've already done the work once. Why not use it? Here we have our little dancy dude. We're going to ungroup him. And I'm not going to bore you guys to death with seeing me delete everything again. I'm just going to steal the legs. And I think I'll just use these eyeballs over here. Right. And we will group that. And even though those aren't perfect, they're good enough for right now. Drop them down there. Delete. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of what this could look like, there's our eyeballs, even though those aren't perfect. And let's do a mouth, which we can just steal this circle right here. Drop them down. We're going to make them black. And we will do a mask. I think it's this green. Yeah. And there we go. We have our little plant dude. So let's start bringing them together to make them look better. So now you've probably noticed this has a completely different leg and arm positioning on the body from our other little critters. And the reason why that is, if you put the face down here, kind of like what we did with our pin cup, you're just going to have this weird green poof sitting on top, and that'll end up being just kind of a lot of wasted space. So unless you're going to completely redesign this, you just end up not really having anything fun there. So we're going to take advantage of all that, and we're going to have something fun. All right, so on these eyeballs, I am going to ungroup them, and you know what, let me stop. Let me see if I can center this before I ungroup them. That's actually pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. I think I'm going to keep that for right now. All right, so let's go ahead and ungroup, and let's zoom in. And let's start making some changes. First thing, I'm going to get rid of the eye shine because we use it on a different character, and we're going to do something else. So we can take one of our other little shapes, which is this kind of hollow circle. And we're going to turn them white. And we can kind of put them in there. And it gives it almost like a little kind of I don't know, a halo look, I guess that's what you would call it. Now, yet again, thin lines. I can do the same thing with my thicker donut shape. And now we're in a thick line situation. And I kind of like that better, in all honesty. And line it up. There we go. Now, he looks a little creepy right now, so we're going to have to work on making him look not quite so gosh darn creepy. So let's change his smile up. That way we have a different smile from all the other ones. And I want this guy to kind of have like a really wide smile. Kind of like that. And let's get rid of the blue. Let's go to maybe a black. Or maybe a red. I think red's going to make him look extremely creepy. I do like the red because it matches what we have down there in the pot. But I think we're just going to end up with a demonic looking little character. And that's not really what we want. I think the gray looks okay. I think the black looks okay. So let's go for the black. And on these guys, let's see how white looks. And then on our little limbs, we're going to try and pseudo match the pot colors. Almost like our limbs kind of grew out of the pot. And there we go. And now we got to ask ourselves, what do we want our little tree person to be doing? Do we want him dancing? Do we want him frolicking? You know, what do we want? And I kind of like the legs underneath like this, and I don't really want them perfect. And I like the arms way up here. I think that looks cool. We're going to have him kind of be waving. Almost kind of like what we did with our cell phone. But we're going to make this guy look a little bit more casual. Kind of like he's just hanging out and he's giving you a what's up. Now, the more I have sat and enjoyed this little guy's face, the more I hate it. So we're going to need to do something to kind of make him look less creepy. So I like the little eyebrow kicking up there. Or maybe this guy just won't have eyebrows. We'll see. I think we're going to go with blending the eyebrows in a little bit. And I think what we're going to do, as opposed to having white, we are going to take advantage of some color. And let's see how that looks. I don't like that. Let's just see what happens if we kind of pseudo color match everything. That doesn't look too bad. I mean, he looks like a weird little tree guy. Other things you could do is you could kind of treat this like an eye shine, and you could really kind of shrink it up, and then it's almost kind of look like he's looking off in a different direction. So if you wanted to do that, zoom in, and you're going to start to get really small to make it look like eye shine, or you could just kind of make him look like he's looking over here. And what you're going to want to do here is get a guide square, and I should have done that before we zoomed in. And gray should work for what we need. And just kind of put them over here on the extreme of the square, or the extreme of the circle, and just kind of line them up like so. And I like how this guy's starting to develop. He looks like he's just a nice friendly guy, kind of looking off. So let's get rid of this kind of black color. And let's go back with the blue and let's try and make him somewhat friendly. And then we'll change this from green to white. And that really kind of took the creepy out. So I like him now. I think he's a fun little character. Now, his arms and legs do kind of blend. And that's okay if you just do it on one or two characters. Just don't make a habit of doing it on all of them. Because you can see how much depth it adds if their arms are different colors. Now, if you really wanted to get, particular about it, could you take this and go here and drop that color a little bit? Yeah, you could, but it's going to lose that effect of, the arm grew out of the pot. And there's our little guy here. Let's move on to the cactus. So the biggest problem with the cactus is you have so much going on. You really just end up needing to remake the cactus. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to delete that group. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our little pot. And I hope you guys remember from the earlier lesson how to make a pot. We start off with a whatever type of, rounded square, regular square, whatever shape we want. You could even use this shape if you wanted to have like a tapered look to the pot. You know what, for this time we'll do that. That way it's different than the other pot. And we'll keep our rounded square. Send him back. Make him a little bit bigger. Line them up. And there we go. Now we got a pot. And the good thing about this is, like I said, it'll look different than this pot. So let's pick a color for our pot. Let's go with kind of a terracotta. Kind of like what we had in our original cactus. And we'll probably end up having to make an orange to work. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. And that, that's a pretty decent looking little flower pot. So how are we going to make a cactus? Well, we can't use the same type of cactus. We're going to need to use a different type of cactus. And the great thing about cacti is they come in all different shapes. So we're going to make a kind of oval shaped cactus. And let's go with some type of green. Dark green, light green, whatever you want. And it really doesn't matter there. Just make sure and try and line your little guy up as much as you can. And I want him to sit a little bit deeper in the bowl. Kind of like that. All right, so you can do your face first or you can do your needles. It really doesn't matter. I think I'm going to start off with the needles, and I'm sure you guys remember how to make the needles. We did it for 3 Forevers, and it was a lot of work. But here we go again. We're looking for kind of a eggshelly color, kind of like that. And then shrink them up. Now I do have some good news for you. We don't have to make anywhere near as many needles, because these needles are just really meant to be more kind of decorative. And just take, copy, and we're just going to kind of come down both sides. And yet again, here's where you can use some of your individuality and creativity. Do you want the needles to be uniform? Do you want them to all be different? And that's just completely personal preference. If you want them to all point like this, or you want it to be over here, and this one's like that, and that one's like that, and this one's pointing just straight out, and this one's kind of pointing up, whatever you want. And now we're going to come on the other side. We're going to do the same thing. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 needles. The only thing I'm going to tell you to do is just make sure if you got 5 needles on one side, try and keep it even though you don't want it to perfectly match. And that's more of a me preference than an actual design preference. I think it makes it look cleaner. You, yet again, don't have to do that. This is your illustration. It can be whatever you want it to be. And so here we go again. We're just going to take everything and tweak it in all different types of wonderful directions. And there we go. Next choice you have to make is, do you want your needles to be in front or behind? I personally prefer to have them in front. Behind. Just because I think it makes it look just a little bit cleaner. We'll fix the pot here in a second. There we go. And the other thing too is it gives me more room to kind of work. You know, I have more room for the face. So other things I'd like to add before we move on to the face, you know, a lot of the small cactuses like this, they have little flowers on top. So we're just going to make something really simple really quick. And this is kind of a nice embellishment, and I'm going to show you two ways to do this. So way one is we just take some circles, no real rhyme or reason here, and bam, there you go. You have a little cactus flower. You could do the same thing with hearts if you want it to be a little bit more, different's probably the right word, but if you want it to just look a little bit bumpier, a little bit different, or have some more layering to it or whatever, you could do it with hearts as well. And that's all just kind of personal preference. The thing I don't like about the hearts that I do like about the circles is it's easier for me to create something clean quickly than I do with the hearts. And it's not that that isn't clean. I mean, that looks very natural. It's just if I had to recreate this for any reason, it would be very difficult on me. But I actually kind of like how it turned out this time, so we're going to go with it. And we're going to put it up here. We're going to shrink it way, way down, and plop. There you go. There's our little heart flower thing. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and do a face. And this is kind of the same thing again. You know, you don't have to do the same face every time. It's better if you don't. But how we do the face, you know, there's only so many ways there. And I think what's going to work best on this one is doing the rectangle and using it to measure the eyes, just because this is a little bit of a weird shape. So I'm going to get my rectangle kind of sort of in the ballpark of where I want it to be. And then we're going to zoom in. And I think that looks all right. And we're going to come on up and we're going to cut kind of a semicircle, copy, and same thing. I'm going to change the color on this rectangle real quick just because I'm having a hard time seeing exactly where we're supposed to be. There we go. And we'll recreate this eye. And there we go. So now we have our eyes spaced out relatively evenly. And, you know, now we're asking ourselves the same questions. You know, do we want eyebrows? Do we want pupils? You know, what do we want? So let's stop and let's take a look at what we've already done. We've done our guy with a little circle. It's kind of looking over. We've done dead on pupil. We've done eye shine. So really kind of at this point, you know, we can start to repeat just because we have enough diversity. Also, you could just choose to do nothing. You know, you could leave it as is. Give this character some little blue eyeballs. Been using blue a lot. You could, yet again, use whatever color you want. And then we could do a little mouth. And we'll kind of drop it in here. Center it up. And then we'll come in and we'll make a mask. And black. And there you go, you got your happy cactus. You could stop right here. This looks absolutely fine. Other things you could do if you wanted to, you could make a copy of this shape, thin it up a little bit, kind of be very careful where you place it. Go with a slightly lighter green and push it back. And you could kind of give your cactus a different feel if you wanted to do it that way, with kind of having that, outer rim of dark green. I think that looks good. I kind of like where that's going. I'm not in love with just having kind of the dead eye. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to give this guy a little eye shine. And we'll just do a different eye shine than the other one. I think the other one we did on the right side. We're going to do this one on the left side. And there we go. So we have our little happy cactus. Yet again, you could talk about a teeth situation, or you could talk about, having him sticking out his tongue, whatever you want to do on that. We need to do some legs. So we could stick with the same plan as the pot over here, and we can have, where's my little shape? There we go. We could kind of have the limbs growing out of the pot. And that could be something kind of neat that we do for maybe all of our plant folk. And what I'm kind of envisioning here is maybe like a hands on the hip type of deal. And we could take that and kind of come in just a little bit more. And that is going to be very difficult to match on the other side, but we're going to try. What was our angle? We're going to go with 90. I didn't even think about this. We could even look at, well, I mean, that doesn't look terrible. I don't like it. Let's go back outside with it. Yeah, I like that better. Kind of like a little hands on the hip type of deal, like, I don't know, another way to describe it, like the cactus is sassy or something like that. And then we're going to come down and we're going to do some legs. I think we're going to do some stubby little legs. So we want to do -45 over here. And there we go. There's our little cactus person. And that was kind of fun. I think that turned out really well. And we shrink them up and we plop them down over here. So the thing we have left is a coffee cup, and we may build a couple others and before we start doing our final composition. Now, obviously, if we try to do a top-down style look with this, it's just going to look weird. You'd end up having to do kind of like a weird smiling coffee cup thing. And, I'm sure you can already see, could you make it work? Yeah, you could do this, and obviously the colors would desperately need to be changed, but we'll just kind of go with it for right now. You could do this, and then you could take like this shape and plop them down over here, and let's get a background going. Make him white, grab another little circle, shrink him way, way, way up, drop him somewhere in there, make him yellow, and we got kind of like a fried egg look going. Copy. Well, I didn't need all of that. Copy, delete, there we go. You can have like a smiling coffee cup with, couple fried eggs, and you could even take this and you could try and make some bacon. That's going to be pretty darn difficult. Well, you know what? I got an idea. You can take this guy and let's do a red, kind of a bacony red. And we're just going to kind of stack them up. You know, I'm going to change my plan. These are going to be white. And you can probably already tell where I'm going. And then we're going to take a rounded rectangle. And now we'll do our bacony red. And there's kind of bacon. You know, by no stretch of the imagination is that even remotely perfect. Actually, that looks about as bad as you can make bacon. So we're just gonna get rid of that and pretend that that was never there. Sometimes Canva's limiting, you know, finding the shapes that are gonna make the perfect example of whatever you're trying to make. They can be difficult. Bacon for me is one of those things. Maybe not for you. What you'd probably end up needing to do is if you want to make bacon, you'd have to, and we're not gonna delve into this too much. You'd probably have to make a bar like about so, get some circles going, and yet again we're basically gonna be doing masking and just kind of start to create some natural kind of ellipsy shapes and just kind of get it in there. And you wouldn't want these to be even, you'd want them to just kind of be there. And then come down maybe with this zigzaggy thing, which I failed with the first time. And we'd make him white. And you know, you could kind of sort of do something like that. Even, I mean, that looks better, but that looks more like a dog treat than it looks like bacon. So some things are just going to require a lot of practice to end up looking perfect. But anyways, getting back over here, smiling coffee cup, 2 fried eggs. You know, it would be easy to do a piece of toast or, you know, a biscuit or a pat of butter or something like that. You know, and you could do, you know, a top-down smiling thing, but it's not going to be like a full-on animated character, because even if you gave this guy limbs, and yet again, we'll get back on track here really quick. I'm just trying to show you guys all the different ways you could take this. If you gave this guy limbs and, you know, you position him back, it's just going to look so unbelievably silly and not in a good way. So we're going to go ahead and chunk all this, and we're just going to build a coffee cup from scratch. And let's pick a shape. I like this fun little kind of tapered shape. And for the coffee cup, we're going to look for like a lighter eggshell, almost kind of like an off-white, like that. Perfect. And then we're going to need a handle for our coffee cup. And there we go. And we're going to pick back up that off-white, but we're going to need to darken it up just a little to show some depth. And position it backwards, and bam, there you go, coffee cup. Now, if you wanted it on a saucer, obviously there's a ton of different ways you can make a saucer. The easiest way would be just to take a rounded rectangle, plop it on there, use that same slightly darker color, and bam, there you go. That doesn't look as good. You know, if you wanted to make it right, you'd either need to do one of two things. Start off with a regular rectangle, and I'm not going to make this crazy small just because I want you guys to see what I'm doing. And you'd either need to put a circle on the end, and you'd have to spend a lot of time lining that circle up to get it just right, and we're not going to spend that time. But you see how I've made like more of a rounded shape? Or you could take a triangle, And what we're going to need to do here is shrink it down, flip it on its side, shrink it way down, and kind of more of the same. And give kind of like that tapered saucer look. Either one would work. You know, you'd obviously need to pick one or the other, just because this looks weird, especially for a saucer. And you could get more ornate with it. You know, like let's say you were making some type of fancy tea saucer, and let's say it had like a lip on the edge. You know, could you take it all the way out and do something like that? You know, of course, you know, this is your illustration, this is your time. You can make it whatever you want, but this is kind of sort of what I would do. Let's move forward with this, because the great thing about doing it this way is if I make it perfect on one side, it'll be easy to make it perfect on the other side. And I'm going to even up my circle really quickly. And we're just going to do 100 height and 100 width. And then we're going to come in and then we'll shrink it down to fit it. And how does that look? That looks relatively close. I'm not in love with it, but I think it looks close enough for comfort. Just not in love with that. And sorry guys, this is the perfectionist in me coming out. There we go. So that looks pretty clean. Let's copy, let's paste, let's throw it over to the other side. Where is my, there it is. And yet again. And that one worked out perfectly that time because we already had it right from the other side. So now we can take this guy, we can shrink him down to a reasonable size. We are going to color him that same kind of darker teacup, coffee cup color. And there we have our saucer. So there's our little coffee purse, or our little coffee cup on its saucer. So there's a couple different ways we can take this now. We can just take a face, and I'm going to steal our cell phone face for this one. Ungroup, and I'm just gonna drag everything over. And we'll clean it up later on. Okay, so not that this looks even remotely right, but you could, there we go. You could just put a face on it and you could leave it as is. Or you could try and figure out a way to kind of get limbs on the little guy. That's going to be difficult. And the reason why that is where all the limbs going to attach. Because having a limb on the handle is just going to look silly. Having a limb all the way up here is going to look silly. You're pretty much getting the vibe. Silly, 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 silly. If you made this limb the same size as the handle of the coffee cup, you're going to end up looking like you have a weird teapot or just something that doesn't look good. So the reason why I'm doing this is to show you in this particular object or illustration, limbs don't make sense. So we're just not going to use them. All right, we're going to get rid of all this. And we're back to our coffee cup. So what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to build a face. And I'm going to show you what's challenging about this shape. So here we have the center, copy. And yet again, we're doing the little eyeball trick where we do the 3 dots and we delete one. Now, here's what's challenging about this shape, and you can probably already pick it out. Center of the object is not center of the cup, because, you know, center of the object would be, group it all together. It's going to be somewhere there. That's center on the object because the handle is a part of the object and so is the saucer. And both of those stick outside of our tapered kind of square rhomboidy shape right there. So you're just going to have to really pay attention to where do you want everything to fall to make it look even. What we're going to do is we're going to center everything on our tapered rounded square here, but depending on the shape that you're making or the style that you're making, that may not make sense. And an easy way to kind of illustrate that is, what if we wanted, ungroup. What if we wanted to kind of make it look like there was a little bit of a natural turn to this coffee cup, like the handle was coming out the backside? We would put the eyeballs over here, right? Because it's moving the face. And we would do the same thing with the mouth. And this is just going to be really difficult to get right. That's not going to be right, but we'll fudge it into the right spot. And there we go. So do you see how far over we've moved the face now compared to where we were, which was more like this? We'll just recreate our 3 circles trick. Oh, shoot. We'll have to fix him later. All right, so we're going to recreate our 3 circles trick, assuming it will allow us to. Right. So here's 2 different ways you can express this cup. You have one that's kind of looking dead on, and you have one that's kind of looking off to the side, right? You have to decide what's going to make the most sense for your illustration and what you think looks good. If you're doing something where there's going to be a lot of, I don't know, like natural depth in the illustration, I would lean more towards this guy. If you're doing something that's going to be more like straight up flat design, flat, I would lean more towards this guy. It's all just going to kind of depend on what you want to go for. I like what we did here by having this face kind of off a little bit. I think it looks kind of cool, so that's what we're going to go with. But don't be afraid to use this guy if you like this guy better. And let's zoom in real quick and check where that circle came off. Yeah, it still looks fine. So let's make his face look good. I think we're going to go with all black. And really, that looks fine right there. You really don't need to do anything else. If you wanted to, you could give them like, I think maybe like some little square eyebrows would be kind of fun. And maybe do black on those. No, actually the gray look better. So now he's got kind of like just kind of like a stern little look to him, even though he's obviously a happy little coffee cup. And we'll come down. I don't like that as much. We'll just go with white. And we'll just do some eye shine in this guy. Assuming it'll let me. Let's zoom in. And he's kind of a fun little character. Obviously, you could do more. If you wanted to change things up or you wanted to give him a tongue sticking out or whatever, you could do that. But I kind of like him the way he is. So we're going to group him. And let's take a look at everything that we've made. All right, so here we have all of our little characters. We have our dancing, smiling pin cup, or dancing, tongue sticking out pin cup. We have our tree, kind of creepy tree dude. He still looks creepy. I'll probably end up playing with him more here in a second. We have our happy little sassy cactus. We have our kind of accounting-y, stern, but happy little coffee cup dude. And then we have our waving hi, happy to see you cell phone guy. We're going to end this video just because we've been going on for quite a long time. And I applaud you guys for making it through this video. We'll pick it up in the next one. And we're actually going to go ahead and get all these guys set up in a fun little scene. So I will see you in the next one, and we'll go from there.